My name is Leslie Koch, and I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I run an island. So my official title is the president of the Trust for Governor's Island. So the question is how I found Catalyst Creative, or Catalyst Creative found me. Tony and I found each other via a mutual friend, someone who came out here who does some investing with Tony, and he knows Governor's Island well, and he sort of thought, you wouldn't think that Las Vegas and an abandoned military base island in New York City would have a lot in common, but Brad's a very smart guy, and he said, I think you guys actually talk the same talk, and you've got to go out and see this for yourself. So it took me a while, but here I am. I have been to Las Vegas before. I've been to Las Vegas a couple of times. Took my husband for his birthday once, and as a surprise, and once came off a hike in the canyon, very, very dirty, and provided a lot of dirt for the, what was the Canyon Ranch Spa, as I recall. So I don't think I've been in downtown Vegas before, but I've been on the Strip at least twice. Oh God, I once had an incredible Comdex, like, midlife crisis. So I've actually been to Vegas a bunch of times now that I think about it. So demoing word processors in a booth at Comdex is, yeah, so I have Vegas experience, but I think I hadn't crossed the highway. Well, having driven through downtown before but not actually experienced it, it's amazing to see just the pockets of change. So sort of, Fremont is kind of what those of us who live elsewhere, I think of downtown Vegas. And then when you're walking, I always like to say, and what I do, it's kind of what you see at foot level, and that there's a lot happening besides that conventional image. And so the Strip feels far away, as close at the same time. But it's a really different image and sort of a sense of change, which is really interesting. Well, what's really interesting, I think what's happening in America is that a lot of people are moving into cities. You go to downtown LA, Grand Rapids, Michigan, places I happen to go, and this sense that what's happening here is really part of a larger discussion about how do you make places that maybe once had been really vibrant, but kind of abandoned for different reasons, kind of, I like to say, messy again. We talk about being lively and loved on Governor's Island. And so I think it's part of a larger conversation, but with a really different set of actors here. So I work for the government. So I'm kind of doing what Tony and company are doing here, but I work for the mayor. And so it's really different to see somebody who's coming from a company thinking about how to create a different environment, not just for his employees, but for everybody who lives here and visits here. Sure. I run an island. It's an abandoned military base in the middle of New York City's harbor. It's accessible only by boat, and my job is actually an economic redevelopment job. It's 150 acres that I'm responsible for, plus things like water and seawalls and running boats. But we decided, I've been there for 8 years, to lead with arts, culture, and design, and to really have extended open invitation to all kinds of people and organizations in New York to kind of use our island as a platform. Which they've done, and it's become a really incredible place, from a place that no one had ever visited, literally, because it was a military base and you weren't permitted there, to a place that 8,000 to 10,000 people spend the day on weekends in the summer, and at the same time really using design with extraordinary design in our public spaces as a way to excite people about the transformation. So that's what I'm talking about, sort of how we did that, and kind of lessons that we learned about how the public experiences and responds to art and culture, and hopefully that's relevant for people in Vegas.
Last 24 hours for you?
I know that a big word here in Vegas and at Zappos is collision. It's probably not a word I can use. People would think that I was going to have boats colliding on the way to Governor's Island. So we use the word serendipity, and we find people love serendipity. So I've just loved moments of serendipity when you sort of turn a corner and it's an old casino, but there's this amazing mural on the wall, or you see emergency art across from a National Historic Register casino. So serendipity and surprise, I think, are what makes cities interesting, and it's really fun to see that happening in sort of every corner in downtown Vegas.
What are creative this week?
I think you have to see places. I'd read a lot about what's happening here, and it's not different, but when you see it, and you see it through the eyes of yourself and a bunch of other people at the same time, you just learn things. And so as somebody who has developed a big public space, it's really about the little details, and so where's the food, and whether it's a grocery store or a cool place to have breakfast. And so seeing how all of those details are kind of bubbling at once, sometimes at cross currents, is really interesting. And it's not something, even with the best articles, and there were some great articles written about this project, you really have to walk it and see it. And so I look forward to spending the day walking around tomorrow. And thank you for the beautiful weather. We've survived a rotten winter in New York, so there's no better place to spend April than in Vegas.